when we as parents and coaches have expectations and get all riled up about our kids' hockey or little things and their performance and everything they do, we could really, really, really forget that they're watching someone, and that's you.
The internet just makes the world go around.
Can you tell that story?
About my dad?
Yeah, I'm proud of him, man. It's awesome.
So my dad is, I've said before, he's online famous to a certain degree for being a musician. And he called me last night to tell me that he's like he didn't call me. I called my mom to talk. And
so he didn't call you?
Yeah, he didn't call me.
So you lied. You lied before?
I lied. My dad came on the phone to tell me about that he's getting some like celebrity type people reaching out and like different brands reaching out to do like stuff with them and talk to him. So he's getting to talk to some pretty cool people, just like DM messaging back and forth. And he's just like, this is cool. Like kind of, I could tell like him talking about, he's fired up about it, which is pretty sweet because he's worked super hard to get to his level of expertise. And so I was just saying, I was like, man, like enjoy the attention. It's cool. It's cool to finally get to see a little of that in the online world. So
that's the humble way of saying it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll
put a little more color to it.
I'll do it a different way. Okay. So if you want to listen to some really good, talented music, Pete what is it? If you go to YouTube, what's the channel?
Pete Palazzolo.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd spell that wrong because I don't have the.
And then Pete. Pete is Pete.
It's not P-E-A-T.
No. P-E-T-E.
Yeah.
Palazzolo. P-A-L-A-Z-Z-O-L-O. Music.
Okay. So like, if you remember, I honestly want people to get the link because, as I said before, success leaves clues, right? Your father and your mother, who's a
saint of a woman,
your mom, my wife, are like two of the nicest humans like you could ever meet in the world. But anyways, success leaves clues, right? So your dad was like basically came from nothing, and I'm not going to say like let's make a big story, right? But he came from like very, very humble beginnings. Dad was an army guy and like hardcore Italian guy,
farmer,
old school
plaster worker.
Yep. And just so having your dad growing up and wanting to be a rock star, your grandfather probably looked and said, "What am I raising here?" Right?
You got to hear him talk about it.
So if you see pictures of your dad. Back in the day, he had like, cause he got beautiful hair, like not like that, but he's got a head of hair on him, right? And it's unbelievable. Never going bald. It goes right down to his eyebrows.
Never going bald.
Never go bald, not a chance. But when he was like in his heyday trying to be a rock star, what a head of hair. Anyways, enough of that. The thing that I love about your dad's story is because when you talk about, let's say, because we're in the hockey world, talk to people, and a lot of people say, "Well, I would have made it, but my knee."
Yeah.
I would have made it, but I would have made it, but your dad made a conscious decision at a certain point when he was writing his music and doing his stuff that the business, like if I remember correctly, the business of music is like being a hockey player. It's like one of whatever, and it's not only talent that makes it. There's other circumstances. So he chose to teach music and write music, and his passion was that. So he ran his business for like years and years, like probably 30 years more.
He's still running it.
Okay, still running it, but 30 years of teaching people and high level people, and still playing in public and stuff. So one of the greatest nights my wife and I enjoy doing, honestly, is when your dad's playing at the casino, which he doesn't do anymore. We loved it. Because then knowing the background and the person that he is, and your family, there's obviously like we're gonna cheer for him, right? But I get amazed at the level of professionalism and like how good he is. And then you would say things about like how he would practice, and like if someone thought they were really good, he'd just sit there and go, no, like because he was excellent at what he did, right? So the one thought on this is like for anybody, like listen to me be the motivational speaker here, but it's just the truth, right? When you love something, you never know when it's going to happen. And he's having a different type of success, like not the rock star success that he originally once strived for, but he's getting it in a different way. So his YouTube following is incredible. So if anybody likes like old school rock and stuff, he plays every instrument on the tracks. He's got in the sunglasses playing his tunes. It's clean. It's amazing. His singing's awesome. And then Your sister Christy will join on some songs. It's like awesome. It's like some of the versions that he's done on the music is better than the original versions of. Like it's kind of like it reminds me of when what's the song that came out? Sound of Silence.
Oh yeah.
Came out the different
Yeah,
version
Disturbed
from
did it.
Disturbed,
Yeah.
and everyone's like, "Whoa, that's sick." That's kind of what your dad does to a lot of the music, to me. So it's awesome. So there's one thing: don't if you love something, because I was talking about this with one of the boys earlier today. When you love something, you love it, and because you don't hit it, like maybe for hockey player, you didn't play in the NHL or you didn't get all your dreams come true. Like doesn't mean that um, hockey sucks or music sucks or whatever. It's like you can still enjoy what you love, and that's I think the reason for playing. But then it goes to show you, like when you're that good at what you do, and for him, fortunately, I guess you showed him the avenue of YouTube, and that people can look at your music and see your art, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Not a bad term though. But now hundreds of thousands of people are downloading or watching his
TikTok,
stuff, and he's getting
Instagram,
followers, and now he's getting
Facebook.
connected by famous artists. Like he told me a couple of things that are going on. I'm like, I'm so proud of him. And the thing is that he's 65, man. So this leads into something else I was going to say. So just remember 65, okay? I'm not far behind. So if you want to listen to some great stuff, that's it. But then success leaves clues. So, well, what do you mean by that, Andy? Well, if you look at his family now, he's got a great wife that manages the house and taught you people how to be like good humans.
Yeah.
You probably got your work ethic from both of them. But like if I look at you, how you instead of having a guitar, you whatever it is that you do, I'm going to use like when we got into the fitness, it wasn't like an accident that your programs were off the charts. And like I was talking to someone that I went to Kingston with the other day. He's a trainer in Toronto. I mentioned that a few podcasts ago. And so I was asking, I was telling him how we, but that's mostly you at the end of the day, designed a lot of the off ice programs. He goes, yeah, that's like bang on. Like that's really good. I go, yeah, you have no idea. But like, you're a guy that, okay, I have to learn this. I'm going to learn it, but I'll put it up with anybody, like to a certain degree, right? When you did your engineering, when you do this, everything that you do, you touch, everything is like such quality, right? And that's like a success leaves clues. What did you see every day? You saw your dad grinding away at the guitar, the piano, the drums, whatever, tickling the ivories, all those things, right? You saw your mom being excellent at being a mom, like excellent, like not just, yeah, do whatever you want, like the care factor and all that stuff mattered. Look at your brother, right? He's in med school. Look at your sister, just like banging out her music. Look at your other sister, and getting her master's or doctorate.
She got her PhD.
Like most people are satisfied with being a teacher.
Yeah.
I'll get a master's, I'll make another 20 grand.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get a PhD. So there's something in the water at the Palazzolo house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Like it's freaking awesome. They should be very proud. And I know your dad just looks at it, I'm going to work every day and that's what I do, but you should be very proud of that. And then the thing is that, when you get 65 doesn't mean you retire and you put your feet up and watch TV, because there's a lot of life to live. And what I love about that is there's an energy coming with him because he gets up every day and he does what he loves. It's the best, because we talked about parents a little bit about in our last podcast. And I think that, when we as parents and coaches have expectations and get all riled up about our kids' hockey or little things and their performance and everything they do, we could really, really, really forget that they're watching someone, and that's you. Talk is cheap. If they see you doing something that appears to be like you're trying to reach for something, they will be proud of you. And when you talk to them about, maybe it's the hockey thing or achieving something, then they could actually, you can relate, right? And then you could actually relate to their struggles as a parent with a kid. Because if you like, I know I'm going on here. Sorry,
yeah, you're good.
But if you go on like, you like you're talking to your kid about not working hard, or you need to be prepared for practice, any of those things, it's hard to do. Like if they say you just go to work, that's one thing. But if you made a commitment, like I'm going to cut out something in my diet and I'm going to walk every day for whatever, like do a fitness thing. they actually see that. And then when the day that you get up and you have a headache or whatever, and it's shitty outside, whatever, and you don't feel like it, well, your kid does that too. So you can actually relate, like, okay, you didn't feel like it, but I did it. And you can have conversations instead of just pretend conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the one thing I will always, both my parents, like, I have the utmost respect for both of them, regardless of like whether I agree with everything they do all the time or everything they've ever said to me or whatever. The one thing that they'll both always have is my respect, because they do hard things a lot. And it's just like very clear that they did that. They both take good care of themselves. They're both have, their own things in their life that are driving them. Like every now and then my mom calls me and tells me about, oh, I just did this workout that I was like so hard and I was so proud that I did like this, that, whatever. Right. And my dad will call me and tell me about his, or when we're talking, because my dad doesn't call me a lot.
Yeah.
When we're talking, and he'll be like, oh yeah, this cool thing just happened, whatever. And I can remember since like from the time I was a little kid, like seeing that. And that's something I remember, like even now, like coaching my team, man, like I'm so out of hockey shape that it's actually laughable. Like if I ever jump in on a drill and I do two sprints, like I do 2 hard reps jumping in the drill, like I'm zonked. And I'm like, I used to do this 100 times a practice. Right. And like you don't, if you're not in that mindset of understanding what they're going through and you're not showing some type of example or some way to relate to what they're doing, it makes it hard for them to buy into what you're selling, And I remember thinking that with like some of my coaches too. Like I remember one coach in particular, it's like when I was like pretty in shape, right? Like I was always pretty in shape, and especially as I got older. And like I remember getting like a being in shape conversation from one of my coaches, and like kind of looking like, like I don't really know that I'm gonna take this from you, And so like there's that, all those elements are important to keep in mind, like from the coaching parenting side, especially if you're gonna be somebody that's gonna bark orders about how to do this or how to do that, right? So and then on the flip side too, if you're just a parent that maybe you're not the most dialed in, whatever, it's like there's so much insecurity that comes along with trying to do something, like trying to make a change, trying to make an adjustment. Because if you go to modify, like your diet's the easiest example, you go to modify your diet for the first time, you're probably going to screw it up. Like at some point, it's probably not going to be smooth sailing the first time you try to make a change. And you have to just be okay and honest about you're working through it, man. And like there's a respect there too. Like if your kids are seeing you're trying to do something and you failed and you're trying again and you failed again and you're trying again and you failed again and you're honest enough about that, that's an awesome thing to be able to see every day too.
You know what's something awesome about that though, if you just think, what a great way to have a conversation with your kid. You have a hard time talking to your kid, like it's like, right? It's so, hey Eric, like I've been trying this new diet, this new workout, like I don't know, what do you think? And the kid, you're making the kid feel important because he probably knows something, right? And if they give you the, I don't know, it's just, well, yeah, but you're like, I want to know because you're like, this is your world, and now I'm important. Okay, and your kid says, well, yeah, but if you eat, like what you're missing, mom or dad, is you're missing, like you don't have any protein. So like if you're trying to get lean in any way, the protein is like number one. And the mom or the dad goes, oh, like, yeah, but I don't like this. Well, yeah, but you could eat this, and you have a conversation, and kid walks away feeling smart. Mom had built a relationship and probably learned something from their kid, or in several instances, the way it was with our kids, like you're actually really know your shit. And oh yeah, well that's good for you. Like you pay attention, like you learn, right? So I just think it's great. Anyways, I went on a tangent.
No, that's
Sorry
right.
about that.
I think it's good. We'll see how long.
Is that anything to do with our podcast?
No, not at all. But that's okay. I think it's all good shit. I'll see how much I can leave, and we'll see how long we go here. But you wanted to start with the actual things we were going to talk about. You want to talk a little bit about, we had Brian Prout on last week. I actually got some really nice feedback from several people.
Oh yeah. I texted him yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So I just told him on behalf of us,
yeah.
like Eric, the staff,
cool.
and the kids. So I said I had the first chance yesterday to talk to. So Brian Prout, in case you haven't seen the podcast, is with the Saginaw Spirit. He's assistant GM and scouts, and helps run that organization. It was run very uniquely and good, very well. And he's been a friend of mine for a long time. So we brought him in for a podcast, and he talked to the kids. And so yesterday I texted him and I said, listen, the first time I had the chance to talk to the kids, all in one group, I said the feedback was astounding, awesome. They loved it. They learned so much. There's so many gems in there, and I just really appreciate everything you did for us.
So I'm happy that I ended up recording it, because initially I wasn't 100%. Like, I thought maybe we'd have him to do a podcast after, but I like that format of him giving the live talk and just like recording what you guys were going to talk about anyways, for a couple of reasons. One, it's nice for people to see the different tools that we have, because we run things a little different. Like the way our organization is starting to shape up is we are actually very different in how we operate behind the scenes. You know, we're not quite an old school shirt and tie prep school. We're not just an academy that just has things every day with online school. We're not a AAA organization. We don't have a board. We don't have like all of these things that a lot of these other organizations have. So we are pretty unique, and it's nice to give people a little look behind of like some of the things we're able to do. Like that, having that conversation, very few. I mean, I'm sure people have resources where they could try to do that, but actually executing it, following through with it, and it being the quality that we were able to pull off with Brian is something that I think is unique to us. And like maybe other people do that stuff too, but I haven't seen a lot of that. So it's cool to be able to do that. But I was happy that I decided to record it to try to flip it into a podcast, because I've gotten a lot of outreach, not just from our parents and our kids, just people that now have listened to the episode, of just like, what better person I don't think there could be a better person to listen to about all of the things that all of us care about, like, than the guy that is in a decision-making
running
seat,
a team,
right? Running a team and at the games and talking to the kids. And the cool thing that I liked about listening to Brian is like, he just really does seem to care about working with the kids. Like, it just, because there's some GMs, like there's some teams that I know of that like, they barely ever talk to the kids. They barely ever reach out. They're barely ever around. They're not even really at the rink. They're not like, and they're very hands off. And here's a guy that's like really, or at least seems to be, like, I'm not in Saginaw every day, but just seems to be very integrated with working with the kids, which is why I think it like really showed in how he's, you know, talking to them and how transparent he is, and just the level of comfortability he just had engaging with the kids and listening to their questions and talking to you and being in front of the group. Like, it was awesome. So I know you wanted to touch on like a few things that stood out to you. So
yeah, well, before I do, when you say that, like, this is what people need to understand too, right? Is like, when you don't understand this, but like those like guy like Brian Prout, that's my friend. Those are the people. No, I wasn't saying that to be like mushy, but he's my friend. But those are my friends. Those, like, when I talk about hockey, or talk to a kid about, you know, maybe this move works and maybe this doesn't, and I give you my feedback. It's not like, I think that's not what it's coming from. It's coming from playing, coming from coaching, coming from training several players, going through that, and then having a whole shit ton of friends that are coaching in the NHL.
That's your everyday.
That's my everyday. Coaching in the NHL, coaching in the OHL, managing in the OHL, scouting, and this is my everyday. You know, talking to a player, like what's actually happening when they played for Calgary or whatever. So that's not news to me, but like, that's why it's like, I really wanted to get him in front of the kids, and I want to do that more. I know Brantford said that they would do it too, but I don't know if he can get down here, but we'll see. But I think the kids need to see that, because it doesn't get any more factual than that, right? This is the real conversation. So it's like, when I talk to kids, it's like, that's where it comes from. Like, it's not necessarily an opinion. It's like, this is what happens. So when people say, oh, I gotta play center, it's like, no, you don't. They're not looking at it. Like, they're looking at habits. They're looking at how you play. It's not winning. It's not scoring. It's not all these things. And when you hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, it's a different thing. So anyways, I just want to say, those are our friends. That's where, when we talk about things, it's not like I'm pulling things out my ass.
Yeah, right.
I think this would work. Like, it's, you know, for the most part. So anyways, what I wanted to just like go over, like, a couple things is there was a couple highlights there that I really liked. And the thing, I hope parents actually listen to it, like our parents, and the kids retain some, and go back and listen to that a few times. The one thing I really liked is, I said it in a different way before, is like, it's a 30-30-30 rule, right? A 30 of your games are going to be great. 30 of the games are going to be whatever. So but someone was asking about like what type of player you want. We talked about consistency, and he was using Howard Chuck and his GM Dave Drunkle talking about like the reality of a hockey player is a 60-20-20. So meaning basically 60% of the time is your real game. Like it's what you are going to get. So like people get fooled when, you know, when you see your son or as a player, you see you having those games that are just everything works. And if that's your expectation every game, like it's good to have the expectation, but we have to understand that there's a certain part that not every game is going to be your absolute best games. And then you're going to have games where you struggle a little bit, where it doesn't look good, where it doesn't feel good. That's not who you are either. So if you look at it over a 10-game period, 6 of those games typically are going to be, or 160%, 60% of those games are going to be who you are. You know,
it's your average.
It's your average. It's just who you are. That's how you play. You maybe a little bit above, a little bit below, but that's who you're going to play. So if you're a point a game guy, like you're probably going to get a point or two that game. If you're right. The 20% where you're feeling exceptional, it's like just enjoy those nights, because that's, you know, and try to maintain that, but enjoy. But the most important part is the 20% that you're at your bottom half.
Your worst.
Your worst. Right. And what he was saying, without saying it really going in depth, and I think this is the hardest thing for people to understand, is this is where I always, when you're doing everything right, nothing really matters. You're going to do things right. But it's taken that game where you know, or you feel like the shift or two, it's like you're chasing it or whatever. It's like, okay, now those 3-4 habits that you have, like that identify you as a player, that's where it is important to really dial in. So is that finishing a hit, like being defensive, whatever. So that was something that I really, really glad that he touched base on, because it's a critical piece to being a player.
Yeah. My 2 cents on that is, I remember as a player, you come in after, either as an individual or as a team, like either as an individual myself or within my team structure. Like sometimes you'd come in after the game, and whether it was addressed to me or addressed to the team, if we had like just a banging game, like everything was just on, and you know, the coach comes in, and a common type of thing you'd hear is like, that's the new standard, like that you guys just set the standard, that's the bar, and I'm not saying to not say that, because it's good to try to, you want your guys to push what their baseline is, right? 100%. But in the back of your mind as a coach, it's like, that's not the bar. It's like that's not going to be where they play on average, right? On average, they're not going to be their most exceptional game. That
would be outside of your average.
That's outside the average. So what's going to be average is that 60% of the time, like Brian is saying. And then what I liked about the bottom end, he's talking about the bottom end. I think if I remember like specifically, it's like you want people to not know it's one of those 20%, right? You don't want people to be able to tell. And that's where, you know, coaches will talk all the time about, you know, simplify your game, like get down to those, like you're saying, the 3-4 things that you can focus on that aren't points, that aren't goals. Like when things just aren't happening, you can still fall back on those things that are going to be solid no matter what. And no one will be able to tell that you're in one of your bottom 20%, but you can tell. You know, and like that's a good way to try to blend it. So all they're ever seeing is your average or your exceptional, you know, and that was a really good one for sure. Good takeaway.
Yeah. Instead of stick handling the puck, you're throwing it into a corner and finishing a hit and making something happen out of it. So the other one that I really liked, because I'm so far away from playing, and you forget, because he's built teams, right? They build teams, and that's a lot of things that people don't understand. That because when we're parents or players, we think about ourselves and the team later, most of the time. So what I really liked was when we talked, because I talk about emotion and body language and that kind of stuff from a more of a selfish. Mostly I say, Eric, don't slam your stick because it looks bad for you to get scouted, or don't chirp the ref because it's just a bad look on the team or whatever. But Brian put it in a really good way, and it's really good because they went to deep in the playoffs a couple years in a row, and like many years in a row with really good players, and then won the Memorial Cup, and they went in those battles with London and all that stuff. What I really loved about him talking about the emotion was the fact that they look at it from a scouting perspective on how is that emotional player or lack of emotional player going to help us or hurt us if we took him on our team. And he just explained the roller coaster ride of a playoff series, like a true playoff series in the OHL Pro, like where it's a 7-game series where it's not a 1-gamer in the Olympics. But even that's an emotional roller coaster, but where you can go and blow someone out one night and then the next day it goes, it should be easy and it's just you lost in overtime, and then it's like it takes your emotions up and down. So if you have someone that is uncontrollable, if their emotions are uncontrollable and they just show everything that, they don't have a poker face at all or poker emotions, then that person's probably going to be volatile and hurt you in the long run. So I really like that perception of it, and that's coming from a champion, right? And it was really good how he said that. I really enjoyed that. So that's something to really think about, is like not only just be in control for yourself, but like give your team a chance to win. And when people are scouting you as a player, until parents understand this too, right? That's a thing, is like they're not looking, like Brian said, if you slam your stick because you didn't score and you want to show everybody that you're upset, it's not really the best thing to do. So like they want to draft people that are going to help them win, not be selfish players, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I would want to learn more about. And I don't even think there's real answers to this, but I want to learn more about the psychology of just getting outside of yourself and really learning how to buy into just like the team thing. Because like you can say it, but at the end of the day, if a U16 player gets taken off the power play and it's just the best thing for the team, that hurts a lot more in U16 than it did when I was playing in, college or whatever, right? And so it's important to have some of that kind of perspective, but I don't know what the best way is to teach that necessarily, right? Like you're trying to figure out how to get kids to understand that when they're maybe not quite mature enough to understand it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Actually, there's a book, and I think I threw it out when I burned all my books 10, 12 years ago. Lou Holtz did a really good job when he wrote this book about. I might go buy it again. I'll look it up. I've been wanting to read it again. Lou Holtz. It might be called Winning or Be a Champion, something like that along those lines. And he was explaining in this book, and I thought he did such a great job of it.
Winning every day.
Winning every day. Really good read. Winning Every Day by Lou Holtz. Funny guy too. He was actually pretty funny. But he talks about, the second fiddle, meaning, the quarterback gets the glory, but without that guard blocking 3 guys to give them time to make a pass, or the second string guy that has to be ready. But like how their roles are so critical, and you have to think about outside yourself, and it's just the truth, right? Like,
well, it's like the player you were talking about with our team that's getting a bunch of teams talking to him right now, right? It's like he's not in a glory, flashy, what everybody would see watching the game. But he probably has the most attention of anybody, I think, right? And it's in such a quiet way to the average person watching. But the hockey people know that that's not average, So that's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing I wanted to just say was this was outside of the podcast. Brian and I were talking maybe a few weeks ago. We were talking about whatever players, and then we got on the topic of size. And again, running a team, right? You're seeing things from a different perspective. And he says, yeah, it's really important to have size on your team. He goes, like, if you look at the Memorial Cup run on the back end, they had Braden Hache, and they had some bigger guys back there. He goes, it's not so much that you're punishing the other team. He goes, although that's the weapon as well. He goes, but it's really important to be able to absorb punishment in a 7-game series or 4 7-game series. And he goes, at the end of a series, you just look around that dressing room and the smaller guys are just, they're taped together.
Yeah, more banged up
because the body doesn't absorb it as well. And it's like, so what's the message if you're 5'8"? Well, try to be really strong. Try to have some thickness to you, like not bodybuilder things, but like be really strong and have those tendons like very mobile and stuff like that, so that you don't get banged up. So is it just a different way of looking at it, right?
Well, these
Can you absorb the punishment?
Well, and this is what's funny is like from like a scouting perspective now, that's really unique thinking of it that way, because it's like, oh, like you just like him because he's big, or like the only reason he got a chance is because he's big, and it's like, okay, like maybe that's one part of it, but it's like it's actually just valuable for our team to have that, because they can take the shit for longer. They just on average. And you can get big guys that are pretzels too. Like I'm not saying it's through and through, but on average, bigger guys can take more shit. And that was a cool way of here, because I've never heard that way of saying it, because that's one of those things where I already knew that to be true, but I never had that like explicitly said that way where I was like, oh yeah, like that 100% is a factor in there too. So yes, those are some really, really good takeaways. Anything else you want to say to close that off?
No, I think the only other thing I would say to close that off, it's not me telling everybody what to do with their life, but I think it's very important to like when parents often talk to me, or in general, they talk like they know everything about the game. And the reality is, in general, very little about what's actually going on. So I say this to kids all the time, and we talk about this, we do this in here. Sometimes just shut up, right? Like we talk about this a lot, like the loudest guy in the room all the time. You haven't learned one thing. You're just yapping. So like maybe when you're talking to someone, like, and you could be nervous talking to someone that knows the game and you want to act as if you're on par or you get what they're talking about, but like maybe several times it's just really good to ask questions and actually listen to what they're saying, and you're probably going to get some really good shit in between years.
Yeah, right. It's a hard skill to actually listen. I forget where I heard it first, but it's just sometimes you're talking to somebody, they're not listening, they're just waiting to respond. And I forget where I first heard that, but that's a comment. I notice that all the time. It's like you're trying to, and I'm not saying I don't do it either. Like sometimes it's like it's an effort to try to just shut your brain from thinking your next thought and focus on the incoming thoughts from somebody else, right? And then figure out what you're going to say after that, right? But it's hard to buy into that. And I know that, like, I'm a yappy, know-it-all, have a lot to say about things type of person. And I know that, like, training myself to just shut up has been an ongoing development. So I'm by no means saying that I'm always quiet and not and just listening perfectly, but it's because it's a fight to try to pull something out that from everyone that you talk to. That's one thing I really respect about Dan too, that owns BioSteel. He's very, very good at that. Like he's very good at just asking and listening and asking and listening and asking and listening.
He can talk too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
If
he's got something to say though.
But if it's his domain, then he'll speak. But for the most part, like he's asking questions and listening, right? Asking questions and listening to answers. And that's a really good skill to have. So 100%. So I'm gonna kind of branch off your last point there on the size thing, because I had a conversation, or I guess more just like being able to take the abuse. I had a conversation with one of our guys, and he was asking me basically just about in-season training, more or less, of like how should you be working out? Should you be working out? What does it look like? All that stuff. And it's so funny because I feel like I explain a lot of this stuff, but it's not like I say it once and you get it, right? Like, so it's the consistent, I have to keep reinforcing it and talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And like, I've had years and years and years of learning and remembering that the first time I tell the kid that's going to take 25, 30 times, and still then they're not going to get it for another 2 years. Trying to keep that at the forefront of my mind is important when I'm having these conversations. So he comes and asks me about the training stuff. And in my mind, like my default is like, I know we've already talked about this more than once, but whatever. So we sat here and I kind of went through all of the things, and there's just like the common questions that people have about working out and what it looks like when you're playing. And so I just want to go through some of that stuff and what it means to train during the season so that you are staying strong and you can take the abuse and all that stuff like we're talking about. So like the first thing for me is, and this is just the way I like to explain it, that works for me. You could talk to a million trainers and they'll give you different versions of something similar, but the way that I like to talk about it is when you're training for hockey, there's kind of 5 buckets that I put things in. I know you already know this, but just whatever. So the 5 for me are, there's strength, there's power, there's speed, there's conditioning, and there's injury prevention. Those are kind of your 5 categories. So when you're working out, which thing are you working on? Like you should know which thing you're working on when you're in a workout. If you don't know, then the likelihood that you're doing random things that might be detrimental particularly during the season, is probably pretty high. When you're younger, the less it matters because you're just learning how to do things anyways. But as you start to get older, my guys are U18, they're going to be playing junior next year, they're going to move on to maybe the OHL or whatever it is. You want to have an understanding of what's going to help you during the season or hurt you. So you have those 5 buckets. In the off season, you kind of work on all of them, right? You're kind of working in all of them, different phases and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to keep that off season to the side for now. I'm just going to talk about in season. So when you're playing a lot of hockey every week, what are the things that you're getting on the ice from a training perspective? So these are your practices, your skill sessions, your whatever, and you could throw some of your games into that as well. Like, what are you training if you're thinking about that? So from a hockey perspective, obviously speed, right? You have no resistance, you're on your skates and you're going as hard as you can, right? There's a sprint there, and there's a quick turnover and a fast twitch that you're constantly working on. And then obviously the conditioning. Those are the 2 things that you're consistently working on every time you're on the ice. So the other 3, strength, power, injury prevention, those would be more what you don't ever get when you're on the ice. So when you're in the gym, what should you focus on? Probably those other 3 things. So that was where I started the conversation with the guy that I was talking to. And for a lot of people, I'll get into kind of what that looks like. But if you start from that baseline of like, how can my off-ice training complement my on-ice performance? Start with that question. That will lead you in the right direction on how to format what you want to do. So one of the first questions that people will ask me is like, should we be lifting in season, right? Should we be lifting in season? And so the big thing, I used to make this mistake all the time, is I would go ape shit through the summer, train really hard, get really strong, look good, like those things that I care about as a teenage boy. And then the season would start and I would just stop working out because I didn't really know what to do. Or if I should, I was scared. Am I going to get sore? Is it going to ruin my performance in the game because I'm tired? Should I stop doing legs? Those types of things are like what was the top of mind for me. And I go back to your point that Brian made about the ability to take the abuse. Well, how do you take abuse? How are you able to absorb the most amount of force against you? And that's going to be injury prevention stuff and strength. Like those are your 2 pillars to be able to manage that. So you have to train that stuff in the season. So for people that are not sure if they should be working out or not, well, you have to understand if you're not training something, then it's going to go down, right? If you're not working out, then it's going to be working against you over time. So if you want to stay strong, but you never train any type of strength, if you're concerned about getting hurt, but you never do any type of injury prevention, then how can you expect that to be maintained throughout the season, let alone get better or whatever, right? So that's kind of the first thing to frame the conversation of like, should you be lifting? Well, the next question is, well, should you be strong during the season? And if everyone would say yes, well, then if you're not training, then how are you going to do that? That's the only way that you can possibly do that. Any questions on that so far?
Nope. I think, let me just see if there's a question. No. Is there an answer?
I can keep going.
The only comment I would say is like, it's not against what you're saying. It's all I would say to someone is like, it doesn't take long to lose a little bit of strength. Like, in fact, it's like, there's arguments on it, but I think it's like within 2 weeks without strength training,
30 days or so, about a month.
Okay, let's call it that.
Yeah,
I'm off by a minute.
The intensity stuff is shorter.
Yeah,
it's like 7
but like to touch the strength, like if you don't touch it, then you're going to lose a little bit. So if you do that for 3 months, 6 months, you've lost strength.
Right. So then the question becomes, okay, so how do I attack strength and injury prevention? Power is can be peeled into that, but I'm going to leave that on its own for now. How do I continue to do that through the season without getting tired, without getting sore? And so there's the concept that I was explaining again to this player was the concept of intensity versus volume. And volume is the total amount that you do, the amount of reps, total number of reps, the amount of work. That's what volume means. Intensity is how hard you're trying, right? So how tough is it for you to execute that thing? So if you do what's going to make you sore, what's going to make you more fatigued, what's going to make you more tired over time is going to be the higher volume. So if I, as an example, if I said, hey, Andy, go run 100-meter sprint right now, and then you're done for the day, is that going to be so taxing on you that for the next 2 days you're zonked? No.
They'll probably wake you up.
Yeah. So it's not enough stimulus for you to be like, wow, I'm zonked. Now I need to rest, right? It's 1. So obviously the logical extension of that is if you keep doing more, if I say, well, Andy, do 10 100-meter sprints today, well, now we need recovery time. Now we're doing so much, the intensity is high and now the volume is high, right? But the intensity in itself is not going to be something that necessarily zaps you where you need a lot of rest. So then we get into the concept of what is training for strength versus training for growth. And when you're training for strength, all your body needs to do is feel something that is hard to do, which means it would be a heavy weight. That's the only way to train your strength. So if you want to get the stimulus of strength without getting the fatigue of the high volume, then you keep things intense, but not a lot of repetitions doing it. That's the recipe. So if you're going to plan a workout to do in season, then the critical factor for you is to make sure you're trying to maintain your strength, which means you're going to be lifting relatively heavy, not dangerous, not stupid, but make sure you're lifting heavy so that your body is continually reminded of this strength stimulus that you want to keep. And that's going to help you with your injury prevention because being strong is a key factor for injury prevention. And then aside from that, then you get into all your mobility stuff, your flexibility stuff, your stability, all of those things can pair into that. So those two pieces are what should make up most of your training in the season. Okay, so then my next point, what does that look like in terms of managing fatigue versus trying to build the durability? So in season, when you guys are putting together your plans, you should all be thinking about all the time. It should be about that durability piece to keep you going throughout the year. You're not training for gains. Like you're not training to try to get bigger and faster and stronger. When you're younger, it's likely that will kind of happen anyways because you have puberty and you have the hormones and you're growing and all that stuff. But your purpose should not be focused on that. So when you guys are thinking about this, what does the type of like volume look like through the season? What I always say is my rule of thumb is twice a week, get in the gym and touch all of your lifts. So whether it's a compound movement like a squat, a deadlift, whatever, your upper body movements, your presses, your pulls, your pull-ups, whatever, all those things, just touch it and make sure that it's something heavy enough where you have to exert
just reminding
effort.
the brain that this is going on.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of the key when you're looking at how to structure your workouts in the season. So my rule of thumb is twice a week, you're trying to make sure that you're in the gym. It doesn't have to be long. It could be 30 to 60 minutes. So the one example that I was giving him was when the McPherson twins were training with me their first year in Leamington. They were in the gym twice a week all through playoffs, the whole time through playoffs. And sometimes they would come in and I could tell like they're beat up, they're gassed. So we would do like a bullshit warm up just to get the blood flowing and get like a baby sweat going for 5 or 10 minutes. They would do a set or two of a heavy deadlift or a heavy squat. It could be a trap bar deadlift. It could be a goblet squat, whatever thing you like. It doesn't even matter. They would do a set of that. Then they would do a set of an upper pull, a set of an upper push, and then go home. They just touched it, right? They just touched it. So it doesn't have to be a ton. So my format for this is warm up. So however, for me, warm ups are always some kind of a dynamic warm up. That's what I like to do. Then I get into the lift part. So my rule of thumb for me, this is just the way that I like to do it, is you do 4 sets of whatever the movement is. 2 sets are going to be warm up. 2 sets are going to be working. The 2 working sets would be like a 80% of a 1 rep max. If you don't know what that is, it's heavy enough where it's hard to do it, but you're 100% confident you can do it. And 2 to 3 reps per set. That's it. So if we add that up, if I do 4 sets of squats and I do a warm-up set of 2, a warm-up set of 2, a working set of 2, a working set of 3, that's 9 reps that I'm doing. Is that right? 3? Yeah, 9 reps that I'm doing of squats for that day. Is that enough that is going to make me super sore? No. Especially my warm-up sets are light, right? Not hard. My 2 hard sets, I've done 5 reps of a hard movement. That's it. 5 reps is not enough that it's going to zonk you, right? So if you start to do junk volume, where you're just doing volume for the sake of volume, that's where you're going to start to get tired, fatigued. It's going to take away from your training on the ice. So anything on that before I keep going?
No, perfect, man.
So if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to start doing what Eric says, I'm going to go do this twice a week thing, then the number one problem that I have with our guys is they don't stick to the script. So they, instead of doing a warm-up set of 2, they do a warm-up set of 10. But they do another set of 10. And now they're getting into now they're doing volume, right? Now it's too much. So the key to make this work, you can do on the one extreme, it's you do nothing, you don't work out, and you aren't as strong, your body composition deteriorates, your injury prevention is not there, and that will incline you to be more hurt. Or you go the other way, where you're doing too much in the gym, you're doing too high a volume, you're overdoing it for no reason, for no purpose. That's going to lead to more fatigue, potentially getting injured as well. So you have to find that middle ground of, for me to actually do this with a purpose, so it complements what I'm doing on the ice, because that is what the purpose should be. It shouldn't be to try and gain. It shouldn't be to try to get bigger. It shouldn't be to try to get, it should be about maintaining. I want to maintain being strong. I want to maintain my injury prevention status. That's what I want to focus on. Then if you can find that sweet spot, that's something that you should be doing throughout the week, at least twice a week. And if you see, sometimes you can look up. I remember the one video I saw, Brad Marchand, he was like, no, you know what it was? We were in, I forget where we were actually. We were somewhere. We were doing a facility tour with one of our teams, and one of the guys there, one of the trainers, was the guy showing us around, and he was saying that Brad Marchand would want to go squat 4 plates. I forget if he was saying before or after the game, and if he's doing that in the NHL, there's got to be some kind of a method to the madness here, right? So for all the people that are like anti-lift, anti-weightlifting, anti-workout, it's like, no, it should just be like anti-stupid volume, anti-too much, anti-without a purpose, anti-there for the sake of being there, anti-bodybuilder workout. That is what should be anti. There's a proper way of doing it that will actually be complementary to what you're trying to accomplish on the ice during the season. Does that make sense?
I know it makes total sense. It's a matter of listening to that. So like if I was a student or someone that asked those questions, like what I would have got out of that is, okay, there's a time and a place to do certain types of workouts. So this person is asking to do, how do I work out in season? Now, this person that you're talking about is someone that's very intense with their workouts. So basically the hidden question is, how can I do more and stay jacked and be strong and get bigger? Like, that's the hidden question. That was the hidden question. I want to stay like, and the other hidden question might have been, am I working out enough? Because I feel like, because he's a hardworking dude, like, and that's the question. So you did a great job explaining to him, was like, okay, if you work out harder, you're just beating the shit out of yourself. Like, because you can't run a marathon and add over the next 6 months, run marathons and train for that and try to gain 10 pounds of muscle and get jacked. Like, you're doing 2 different things. So you're giving them a very clear definition of, like, you want to be strong. You don't need to get, because you're during the season, you break yourself down anyways. So you want to touch it to maintain your strength, so that at the end of the season you can get jacked again. But for this right now, it's very simple. Get there, touch it, remind your body that you are strong, so that you don't lose strength. That's all you need to do. And
it's funny you say it that way, because that's exactly what I said. Is like, when you're playing hockey, all you're doing is fighting the breakdown. Like, the hockey destroys your body, man. It's destruction. That's what it is. You don't have enough gas in the tank to also improve, right? When you're younger, you get away with it a little bit more just because of the natural growth. But as you get older and into your like man body or like adult body, it's hard it's not hard. It's just not possible to try to keep gaining when you're on the ice that much. Like, these guys are on the ice at least 4 times a week with no games, right? So 4 times a week with no games, plus 2 to 6 games. Like the Peterborough tournament, our 16s had 8 games, and I don't even know if it was 3 full days, right? So you're just constantly fighting it, right? So that's the mindset you have to come at it with, is I'm trying to fight as much as I can the breakdown. That's what I'm trying to fight. So it's not about pushing forward. It's about staying where you are best you can. If you get a little bit up, cool. You're still going to likely go down. So you're just trying to resist it as much as you can.
Understand though, like, and I know you understand this, but like, it's really tough to understand, like, for someone that, like, if you were let's say you're a CrossFitter, you someone that likes to really sweat, that's what you feel a workout is. It's really hard.
Yeah, great point.
Because I've been in and out of all of this stuff, right? And for me now, because I was just like over the last few years, just trying not to get fat and stay looking decent, go for a swim and not be embarrassed and like look good enough. And so that's one way. So like when I'm working out, it's like higher reps. It's go sweat. It doesn't really matter. I'm not looking to be like totally jacked, but I just switched up my program this week, and I'm still. It doesn't matter about how big my muscles. I don't care about that, but I want to tighten it up, right? Look good, and it's really hard to know that, okay, because what I was doing for like the last couple of years is basically constant movement. So if I lifted, like I would do sets of like 4 or 5 different compound exercises and get on a bike for my rest period, or skip, and you leak and you feel good and it looks good, like, oh man, look at work my balls off today. But that's not the recipe for if you want to gain 10 pounds or you want to gain muscle, right? You got to actually have the discipline to do the work, step back. So the player that you're talking about that's probably hard for him to not just give her
100%.
It's like, no, touch it,
yeah,
get out of there, and you're good.
Yeah,
it's hard, man. It's a mental pretzel.
Yeah, and I said that exact thing to him too. It's just like you're gonna sometimes feel like you did nothing, right? But just know that you went there and you had a purpose that day, and you did something that was purposeful, So I have just a couple more things, and we can wrap it up. So here's like just a couple common issues around like the training stuff for parents, coaches, and the players to understand, but mostly the parents and coaches, because the parents and coaches, I find a lot of the time, give the wrong advice, good intentioned wrong advice about training, because they just don't know. They just don't know. And so the amount of times I hear players saying, well, my coach said that I shouldn't be lifting heavy, right? Or that I shouldn't be doing XYZ thing. And in my mind, I'm like, well, you kind of should be doing that though, right? So here's just a couple things. So one common issue, players lifting heavy the day before the game with the volume. The intensity and volume combination. If they're lifting heavy with low volume, that actually can be good. If they're doing it with high volume, yeah, that's not good.
It's almost like a comparison. Would that same coach, like kind of silly here, but I like being silly. But like if the same coach or the parent at home said, "Hey, Eric, we need to move the fridge. We're going to bring it down these 3 stairs." And you got one end and you carry it 1, 2, 3, brought it down. You say, "Well, I can't play now."
That's literally the same thing.
It's literally the same heavy. Thing. Right. It's not killing you.
That's actually a great.
I know.
That's actually a really good illustration.
Yeah,
even though
it's like an everyday thing.
Yeah. It's like, hey,
heavy.
Can you help me bring the couch down the stairs? Mm-hmm. Or hey, can you help me bring the couch down the stairs 25 times today?
Right.
That's different, right? That's different. That's a really good way of
I can't move the couch. I got a game tomorrow.
Yeah, really. Honestly, right? Guys. So I really like that. I'm going to use that.
Do you think, if your brain's on?
Yeah. Another one is if you have a trainer and they're not aligned with what your schedule is in terms of hockey, playing your games. So it's like if you're going hey, I have this trainer that I go to and I go to him 5 days a week and he has no idea what you're doing in hockey, that can cause a problem, right? Because how do you know that those workouts are actually aligned with what you need to be doing, right? That can be an issue.
Well, and this is one of my biggest issues, like even from a skills development program.
Yeah, we talked about this before, yeah.
It's like, guys, like it's hard, man, to be on the same page with kids. Like, that's why I like the team atmosphere, like what we do here. We have some control. What they do on the other outside of the hours is up to them. But like it's more than enough. But when guys get on, they do this. I had a kid a couple weeks ago, or last week at the other gym, saying, "My legs are a little every week though. My legs are like really tired today. Like I had basketball, I had a skill session, and a practice that day, and it's like every day like that. It's like, of course, your legs are sore.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You need a nap.
Yeah, 100%. Parents worrying about them being sore. So just to clarify the soreness thing, there's 2 things that make you sore. One is volume. So keep stretching and compressing the muscle, right? Contract, contract. That's what creates the tears. That's what helps or contributes to soreness. That's one. Two is changing stimulus. So doing something new for the first time. The one example I give all the time is going to my first junior camp, got up early, and I said, hey, I'm going to go for, get warmed up this morning. I'm going to go for a run, get myself nice and loose, and then go to my game. Or go to my camp. I hadn't run in months. So I did a 15-minute run. I was already
not a big deal.
Yeah, not a big deal, but I hadn't done it in a long time. So I was like 16 or whatever, and I literally went to the by the time I got to the camp in the evening, I was already getting sore. Like my legs were getting sore. So those are the two things. If you're doing a lot of volume or you're doing something for the first time that you haven't done in a long time, those are the two things that contribute to soreness. Just because you pick up something heavy doesn't mean you're sore automatically. I go back to your fridge example. If you say, hey, move the fridge, is it reasonable to assume your kid's now going to be sore for the next 2 days because they helped you move the fridge, which was heavy? No, right? So it's those two factors are going to be what contribute to it. So you shouldn't be fearing the soreness if they're doing things the right way. And then the other thing is not really having a plan, right? So not having a clear idea, like if you're going to go to the gym, if you're going to put together a training program, if you're going to get with a trainer, like have a plan of what it's supposed to look like. So you're going back to the 5 buckets, right? Strength, power, speed, conditioning, injury prevention. What are you working on? Which is the thing that you're here for? And have a plan around that. Those 5 buckets are out of season or in season. But in season, the only ones that matter in the gym to me are strength and injury prevention. Power leaks into it a little bit, but I'm not going to get into that for right now. So those are just some of the common thoughts and common issues around it that you can keep in mind just to address some of those. So you shouldn't be panicking as a parent, a coach, whoever's giving the advice. If your kid is training in season, you should just be asking, like, what is the purpose and what are you trying to do? Are we doing the appropriate thing? And this, again, is less important the younger you are, more important for the older kids that are getting to, our age, the U16, U18 and beyond. That's where this starts to become much more relevant. But just keep that in mind. If they stop training entirely, that should be more the concern, right? They should be doing something to help counterbalance the amount that they're on the ice, like hammering themselves with that speed and conditioning stuff all the time. So any questions about that? But I have one last thing to finish on.
No question. No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
So the last thing that I want to address is because I hear this from coaches and parents a lot as well, is what about in-season conditioning, right? In-season conditioning. So for me, conditioning is basically you're getting your heart rate to the zone that you're going to be using the most in your sport. That is what conditioning is. Getting your body able to operate with that level of heart rate on a consistent basis. So for hockey, it's actually a combination of your steady state and your sprint with the high heart rate. Because if you're, especially when you're younger, 3 lines, like you get back on the ice pretty quick, right? Like you're every minute and a half, right? Every minute and a half to 2 minutes, you should be back on the ice more or less, right? So your heart rate never really gets a chance to fully come down to like resting. It's always slightly elevated. So you always have that background, that baseline level of elevated heart rate. And then on top of that, you're peeling in the high intensity, the sprints on top of that. So if you want to work on in-season conditioning, where are you getting most of that? When you play, man. Like when you play, when you're practicing, when you're playing your games. So let's say like for us, we have
for sure it is.
We have ice 3 to 4 times a week, plus we have their games. Like they're getting their conditioning, man.
Yeah, you're not getting fat.
They're getting their conditioning. They're working in their environment on the ice, doing sprints. Every drill they start as a sprint. For practice, if you're a high tempo type of coach, battle drills, all this stuff, your heart rate's up the whole time, right? You're getting conditioned. So unless there's a special case where it's sometimes that happens, or if somebody's coming off an injury or someone's just really that out of shape, there's some special cases where more conditioning in the season could be appropriate. But for the most part, you don't need to be hammering more conditioning. The bag skates, the this, the that, like off ice, the dry land stuff where you're running back and forth and all this. You don't have to do that unless there's a specific case for it. What I find is coaches and parents that don't know any different, they default to that because it's just easy to make the kids sweat. It's just easy to do a bagger. It's really not hard or complicated to do.
When a coach doesn't know what to do, or they're frustrated with themselves, they take it on the kids on a bag skate. Like, it's the easy thing to do. You guys aren't into it today, so get on the blue line, red line, whatever. Let's skate. It's like, yeah, but your drills suck.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And then, but outside of that, even if they want to do training stuff, like especially a lot of the young teams do this, right? They go to do their dryland training, and it's a lot of like there and backs and jump up and down and all this stuff. It's all conditioning. It's all conditioning. That's what it is. So now you're taking your 4 to 8 times a week that they're on the ice getting conditioning, and then you're adding more conditioning with the workouts that they're doing, right? So again, I'm not saying it's never appropriate, but that's always something that is asked about. And so like when you're in the season, it's like there's already so much of that. Like the only time I've ever this whole year that I've bag skated my guys has been like I have nothing else to do right now because you're pissing me off so much. I've exhausted all.
But that's sometimes just what needs to happen.
Right.
If you're bag skating every day, then you're a dumb coach.
But it's not. I'm not conditioning you. I'm not doing this for the purpose of conditioning. That's not why I'm doing it. So that's always a major question that people kind of get into. But if you're playing 2 to 5 games a week and you have 2 to 4 practices a week, what more conditioning do we got to do here in season, right? And I say that to my guys too. Like that's why when you're in the gym, it's like slow it down. It's like slow it down. Everything you do is up here. You're always up here all the time, right? Let's slow it down. Let's do like targeted strength work. Let's have good rest periods. Let's make sure we're taking our time doing it to counteract some of that conditioning that we're getting. So I know that's always a big question that people ask about that, the conditioning stuff. So I want to address that too. Again, it's not that it's never, it's just for the most part, if you just think of it logically, all they get is conditioning every time they're on the ice. Every single time they're on the ice, they're getting conditioning, right? So that's just one thing to be aware of when you're putting together or trying to put together a program for your team or give advice or answer questions from your players on what to do. So hopefully that's something that's kind of helpful. Anything else you got on that topic?
Well, no. Do you have more?
Nope.
All I was going to say is, and this is on my wish list. So I met Gary Roberts the other day, and so he's involved with my son's team in Brantford, heavily involved actually, and Charlie loves him. Like, it was great. Like, he's a hockey player, right? And then also Eric Bolton, who is a heavyweight in the NHL. Him and I watched the game the other day. His son's on the team. I would love to get them on the podcast one day. Like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. So my point of saying this is like, I really, really, really want to talk. So I talked to him the other day, like briefly. Hey, how you doing? Charlie loves being around you. Like, got introduced to him. Super nice guy, humble. I so badly want to go up to him and say, Gary, I want to sit down with you for hours, because most conversation he's going to have, like with probably hockey parents or whatever, is like, pretty cool, that you played for the Leafs. It was pretty. Remember that time? Yeah. Or like fake, like fanboy kind of conversation. But I really do hope I have the opportunity one day that we, maybe it'll be at a game or in the playoffs or something where we could. I'll never go up to him and ask all of this weird questions, but I hope one day we could just talk and just talk, and let him do the talking and just kind of pick his brain, because guy's done unreal things as a player, and what a story. So I'm really hoping that at some point he's able to I have that conversation, actually take something back. So learn some stuff. I'd love to pick his brain.
Well, kind of on that note, I guess my last thing, and then I'll be done, is there's going to be people that are the exercise scientists and kinesiologists.
Well, yeah, they're going to say it's not 3 sets; it's 2.
And like, this is all like pretty high level stuff. Like there's of course, like there's applications off ice to do speed training. There's applications off ice to do conditioning. There's applications off ice where doing less strength makes sense. Like I said, I didn't get into any of the power stuff, or I'm not getting into like the nitty gritty. I'm just keeping it like as a
16-year-old boy playing youth hockey.
Rules of thumb to follow. And then as they start to learn, the parents start to learn, the coaches start to learn, like for people that don't know much about this stuff, that's like a pretty good baseline to start learning more about it. Because there's like some things, like if you're let's say you're 17 years old and you have a really good coach and like your acceleration is not great, like there's off ice application to work on that stuff in the season. Like you can do that, but then you get into like, what's the rest? What's like all of that stuff, right? So I'm not trying to get into all that. So this is just meant to provide a framework to kind of work off of to start to figure out what it should look like when you're training in the season. So, hopefully that's kind of helpful.
I think you did a good job with that one, brother.
Thanks. It feels like I was just kind of rambling a lot, but covered a lot of different topics today. So hopefully it's useful. So I'm good there.